Good evening YouTube, welcome back to the vlog. Today's quite a dark day. It's going to be the damage report day of the CF Moto 450 MT. Thus far, I have done 1800 miles, most of those miles over the trails, and there's been a bit of damage done. The reason why I'm doing this very short vlog this evening is because essentially tomorrow I've got a 90-mile loop planned, some new trails with a bunch of guys. We're going to go and explore tomorrow, and then Sunday I am leading a couple of newcomers to trail riding around the Cotswolds, and then the week after, next week, I'm going to Wales with Stuart for 3 days around mid-Wales on the trails. So I thought before any of this happens, given that I've done 1800 miles on this bike now, I should definitely check it over in depth. You know, grease it up, oil the thing up, check all the bolts, check the coolant, check the chain, check the oil, you know, check the filter, all the simple things you should do on a frequent basis if the bike is going to get covered in mud a lot and ridden quite hard. So tonight I took it apart, parts of it apart, not the whole thing. I haven't got time tonight, but it's currently covered in mud, so please do excuse me for the state of it. The plan is to wash it on Sunday after the trails, because washing it every day gets a bit much, and if you keep on washing it all the time, the dampness and the water that remain on it on a night after a long day of riding trails just make it rust even more. So sometimes you're better off leaving it until you can actually dry the thing off and then treat it. But anyway, let's jump into the damage thus far. As I've said, this bike is stock. The only thing that I've changed so far are the tires on this thing, and that is it. I've not added engine bars or changed the sump guard or anything like that. And I think maybe after this vlog, you may realize why you may want to do a few of those things as soon as you get the bike. But for me, I just haven't been able to afford it. So I've enjoyed the bike as it is, and it's been a lot of fun thus far. But there are definitely some changes you should make as soon as you get one of these. And I'll quickly tell you now what those changes are, or upgrades are, or whatever you want to call them, additions are. Let's jump into it. Okay, first up is the stock sump guard. It's very flimsy, as most people know. Most people replace these things very quickly with a higher, thicker sump guard. I have not. A massive rock bounced up the other day from the front wheel, hit here, and it dented big time. As you can see, my whole hand goes into the dent here. Sent the back wheel flying up in the air about a foot. But you know what? The sump guard, as stock, did the job. The exhaust pipe and the engine is absolutely fine, so props to CF Moto for that. But I would recommend, as soon as you get this bike, getting a bigger, thicker, higher sump guard as soon as you can. Second thing tonight. Today I realized that the coolant looked a little bit low, so I thought I'd check it out properly. It's actually okay right now. It's on the lower line, but there's plenty in there to keep us going. It made me think, is it leaking? Should I check it? So I did. I took the side fairing off tonight, ended up doing the first real damage. I snapped it off here because there is a screw just behind here which I missed, and yeah, ended up forcing that off a bit too hard and snapped it off quite easily. So that is a bit of stupid damage which could have been avoided, but the real damage is here. So I dropped this bike several times now. There is a slight dent, I don't know if you can see that very well, in the radiator. It's not leaking, thankfully, but there is a dent just down there. It's quite dark, so you can't really see it. So yeah, the second thing I would suggest doing as soon as you get this bike is getting some protection for the upper half of the bike here. Not necessarily engine bars, but bars to protect the radiator. And just generally this section would be great, because the radiator is quite flimsy, and you know, the last thing you want is a puncture in that, because it would, you know, you'd be stuck somewhere on a trail and you don't really want to smash the radiator to bits and have to replace that. So that's the second bit of damage done. Okay, third bit of damage. I don't know if you can actually see this. Let me get it out really quick before my camera battery dies. Panic is on. So the left indicator stopped working last week, and I was like, okay, that's okay, we'll check it out as soon as I can. This is the cable at the top, and this is the cable at the bottom. There is no way, there's no play whatsoever for that to get to that. So this was just done so tightly, this wiring, that it must have just snapped off. I don't know when or how, or, you know, none of this front section really moves apart from the bars which are back here. So this must have just snapped off on some sort of impact, or I don't know, some sort of movement of the bike. So that needs rewiring, a very simple fix, but still, it's just done so tightly and so cleanly. There's no play for the wire to actually move. So I've now lost the front left indicator for the time being until next week. Third bit of damage. And then the final bit of damage, you might not be able to see any of this because it's so dark right now in here, but essentially the side stand, which, let me quickly tell you, I would recommend getting yourself a plate to extend or make this bit wider as soon as possible. Obviously, if you're off-road, it's a great idea. I've not done it yet, stupidly, but I put the bike on the side stand on the grass the other day. And of course, the first real bit of damage that happened to this bike was the whole thing fell over and snapped off the clutch, which I don't mind. I quite like it like this right now, to be honest, but it did also snap the stock hand guards here, which are, as you can see, super flimsy, which is why you might want to buy some bark busters or something really solid to protect all of this stuff here. But, you know, I'm not too bothered about this. They're still there, they're still on, they still stop the wind and whatnot. But I would recommend getting some harder, tougher hand guards just to protect your levers and whatnot when you're riding around. And thankfully, that is all of the damage thus far. Nothing too severe. The radiator could have been more severe, but I guess lesson learned, as soon as you can, get some, you know, bars or whatever you need to protect the more fragile areas of the bike as soon as you possibly can. Particularly the sump guard. Luckily that's done the job so far, but I do want to get a bigger one as soon as possible. But yeah, that's it for today, guys. The plan for tomorrow is to essentially take you through a whole day of trail riding from start to finish, waking up, looking at the route, the maps that I use, etc., planning the routes briefly. We'll talk about it in more detail next time. The kit that I personally wear, I know Stuart's spoken about it last week, but the kit that I've now got on the trails, and then take you for a day out and see what you think of some of these new Cotswold trails that we're going to explore, what you can expect whilst out on the trails, and then essentially just coming home. I won't wash the bike tomorrow, but I have got some new stuff. I've got some XCP professional cleaner and degreaser. So we'll see how that goes tomorrow. And essentially I've got the whole thing covered in XCP. I've got it here, rust protector, which is a bit of a nightmare to get off. Once you've got it on, and I put quite a lot on, so I've kind of overdone it a bit, but once you've got it on, dirt sticks to it like no tomorrow, and to get it off you really have to go at it pretty hard. So essentially the plan for Sunday is to try and get all of this crap and crud off the bike and then recoat it in some fresh stuff before Wales, and also check the whole bike over. But that'll be in a future vlog with Stuart. We'll do the bike checks, we'll do, you know, how to plan and map routes and the laws around green laning and stuff like that in a future vlog, but I'll quickly briefly take you through it over this next few days. That doesn't make sense, the next few days. Anyway, see you guys tomorrow.